Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hi, welcome to be my guest today. My guest is Rick Billings, and he's from Barrington, Rhode Island. He's a children's author. And wait till you see the covers of these books. This is Melba Blue, and he's going to tell you all about it. Melba Blue. And by the way, Rick actually illustrated his books. You're going to hear a lot more about that. That's Melba Blue and the Tragic Tale of Mr. Moofs. How's that? You got that? Where did you come up with these ideas, Rick?
Mr. Moofs was the first book I made. And I actually met a boy who had a stuffed moose that was missing an antler. And I asked him a few questions about it. And the person I was with and I were talking, and I said, you know, I think I can do something with this.
Yeah.
And with the power of social media, which I don't often embrace,
Yeah.
I decided to try to make a page a week and put it out on Facebook.
Yeah.
And my friends started sharing it with their friends, and I was starting to get people following me just to see what the next page would be.
That's a good way to do it.
It worked out very well,
Yeah.
and once I realized that it was going to be something, I went back and redid some of the pages, and then I really started to concentrate on where am I going with this and how am I going to do a finish. And it all worked out very well.
How long did it take you to write Mr. Moof here?
The writing and the illustrating, probably about a year.
It's a good timing. Did you go to Create Space, by the way?
Yes.
I've heard good and bad. When I went in there one time just to check it out, I help authors get out there, but I was checking it out. I was confused as you know what. What makes it so? I wasn't sure what to press or how you guys did that, but it's fascinating. But is it that complicated?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Someone was nice enough to
Did it for you, right?
connect me with a woman in California. Her name is Amy Gilbert,
Yeah,
and she was wonderful to work with.
she did it. Yeah.
And she formatted the book into the proper pages for me after I had it finished. And all I had to do from there was submit it, and it was pretty much just a click and to set a price.
And that was it.
And it was well worth paying
worth
her
it.
to do that.
Yeah, it'd be nice if I could find a friend out there who knows how to do all the Create Space, because it's a great idea, and I hear it's very economical.
It's really not bad at all.
What is it per book? Or
You set your own price, and they will automatically, when you set the price, tell you what your royalty is going to be on the book.
they tell you what your royalty is. I didn't get that part. I thought you just sent your book in and they mailed you all the copies you ordered.
You can order copies on your own,
Yeah.
or they can print on demand. CreateSpace is part of Amazon, so as soon as you get your book on there,
Yeah.
you can list it on Amazon.
Oh, the things I learn every day. Now, this is the Tragic Tale of Mr. Moofs. Then Melba Blue. This came afterwards?
That just came out in April.
What's that one about?
I was really intrigued by speaking to the kids and finding out that they had really intelligent questions about Mr. Moofs. And I had been talking to some of them, and the subjects came up of Edgar Allan Poe, and I started thinking about William Shakespeare, and I had this idea for Melba Blue from my daughter from years ago. And I wound up putting William Shakespeare and the girl and Edgar Allan Poe all together and trying to see if it worked. And I've been really surprised and delighted at the response I've had.
And you did all these. I mean, here's just for instance. He did all of the illustrations. Look at that. So you're both the writer and the person who's doing the illustrating. Both.
I really enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
I am told that that is not what big-time publishers prefer.
The heck with it.
that they would rather you be either an illustrator or a writer, that they feel very few people can do both.
Well, we've just met one who can do both.
Thank you.
Yes. It's a story for children and grown-ups to read together. So mom and dad can read to them, and the child can maybe take a page and read it too.
Right. It's written so that children can read it, But because it's William Shakespeare and Edgar Allan Poe, they might not necessarily understand everything that's going on.
Right.
And I like parents to read with their children anyway. So it's kind of nice to flip a page over.
Yeah.
And if the child should say, well, who is this King Lear character that he's talking about?
Yeah.
Then maybe mom or dad can close the book and say, well, this is who King Lear is, and this
Yeah.
is what the story is.
I love that. What made you think to combine Shakespeare with Poe?
It was partially my daughter. She's just really great. When I first got together with them, she was 6 years old, and she's 26 now.
My son is 26.
Is he?
1992?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So when I used to talk to her when she was little, she had such great ideas, and she used to ask me so many questions.
Yeah.
And I had kind of the germ of the idea at the time, but I was working a regular job, and I've always been an artist, but it takes me so much longer when I'm working
Yeah.
to be an artist. And now I'm retired, and I can just be an artist.
You're retired already?
Yes, I am.
What did you used to do?
I was a firefighter
Oh,
in
okay.
East Providence.
You were a fire. So you know Providence pretty well.
I know Providence pretty well. My city was East Providence. We used to go to Providence once in a while.
A friend of mine used to live on Trips Lane.
Oh, that was right near where I worked.
Yeah, their last name was Bell, B-E-L-L,
Mhm.
and they lived on Trips Lane. I remember driving over from Providence to see them over there. I remember it.
Wow.
Now, can you give us a brief idea of what Melba Blue is about?
Melba is a girl who loves to read, and her friends don't quite understand how much she loves to read. So she spins these tales, and the tales all involve Edgar Allan Poe and William Shakespeare. And her friends think she's out of her mind, but she continues to tell them these stories about all these people they don't know about.
Yeah.
And I won't tell you what the ending is.
No,
but,
don't tell us what the ending is. Now, this one you wrote, when did you write this one?
That actually took me about 3 years to finish.
This one took 3 years. Well, there's
Yeah.
more. Is there more illustrations? Did that take it longer?
The illustrations take a while. I've never been a big computer guy, and it takes a lot of energy and time for me to translate the illustrations onto the computer in a way that I think is pleasing.
Yeah.
That woman I mentioned to you in California helped a lot, telling me what size the illustrations needed to be,
Sure.
and if I needed to make my colors brighter, or how I needed to alter them.
The illustrations, for this to be just only 2 books, this is fantastic. It's like you were doing this all your life.
Well, I have been an artist all my life,
You were back in college or something?
ever since I can remember.
Even when you were little, you picked up a pencil and you were drawing. Right?
Mhm.
I can relate to that one. And down in Barrington, you've been to the Barrington Library.
Mhm.
Where else have you been? You told me, but where else have you been?
Lincoln Library. I've been to several of the schools down in our area, which I really enjoy. There's a school called Sacred Heart in East Providence, and they were very, very good to me
Yeah.
when I first got going, as far as getting kids to listen to me read, pre-selling books for me. So they do a book fair every year, and I always go to the book
You
fair.
always go to that. Well, why not, right? Do you ever come over the line here to Massachusetts? We've got tons of places.
I think this is the first time.
Good. We got to keep them out this way, because the more you head here, this is Worcester County, heading up into Metro West.
Mhm.
Oh, there's an abundance of places to be. We're talking to Rick Billings, and he's the author, a children's author of The Tragic Tale of Mr. Moofs and Melba Blue. Now, do you have anything else coming up? As if this isn't enough. What did you get going?
I have a couple of projects in the works. I have several things written, but I've always been a cartoonist as well.
Yeah.
And I used to do cartoons for a firefighters paper, which I still do even though I'm retired.
Yeah.
And I've been doing those for over 20 years. So the next project is that I'm going to try to compile those cartoons into a volume of firefighter cartoons.
Oh, great.
So that's not exactly a children's
No, that's
book
different.
thing, but it's nice to get something out there that people would want to
Yeah, a
see.
different genre. What do the guys in the fire station think of your ability here?
It varies.
Yeah.
It varies.
Yeah.
Some people get it and some people don't.
Well, if they have children, how can you not get it? These
The-
are gorgeous, right?
The people with children were very supportive. They're also iffy on the cartoons. I pulled a lot of material from the cartoons out of what I was seeing go on around me. And some people were receptive to it, some people weren't.
Now, there are cartoons that revolve around firefighters?
Yes, that was strictly a firefighter's paper.
So it's going to be probably read like with the different squibs, the different cartoons.
Yeah.
When do you think that might come out?
I'm hoping to get that out a lot quicker.
Yeah.
I have all the cartoons already in files.
Mhm.
I need to format them into book form, which I will use that woman's help for again.
Yeah.
And if I'm lucky, I can get it out within 6 months, which would be great.
You're going to let us know, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now, if you've noticed in a lot of the kids and young adult books now, I'm not sure I'm into it yet, but I'm open. You open it up, it's not a story. It's in almost like in comic book graphic form.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like that?
I have a little trouble with some of the graphic novels. It's not my format,
No.
but I can understand that people like it.
Yeah.
I usually look at those for the illustrations more than the story.
Yeah.
I study a lot of different illustrators.
Mm-hmm.
The favorite that I have is a man named Gris Grimley. He's from California.
Mm-hmm.
He has some fantastic books out, and most of them come under this new heading of children's books for adults.
Yeah.
And the illustration style he has is amazing, and he develops in one painting faster than I can in a year.
Does he do it by hand or online?
He does everything by hand.
Your illustrations, Rick, are they online totally, or are they a lot of it what you do yourself?
It's all done by hand.
That's what I thought, and that to me is I mean, anybody I think can go online, right, and do a digital, but to be able to do it yourself, that's quite a big deal.
I try to use the computer as little as possible. I need to adjust the color sometimes, which is a little bit difficult.
You like blue, don't you?
I like blue a lot.
Because, see, on his colors scheme, I notice it right away, and it gets your attention. I can see where the kids are sitting in front of you when you're reading at schools, and they're seeing the covers and all this. They should be sold at book sales. You know the book sales twice a year? I think Scholastic does it.
Yeah.
Can you get into Scholastic, do you think?
Scholastic is very tough.
Is it?
I send a couple of queries to them, and I've never received a reply even.
They're
from them.
crazy.
Yeah.
This is the type of professionalism I would see in a Scholastic book sale.
Thank you. That's
Very
very
much
nice
so.
of you to say.
Rick, how can people get a hold of your books? And if they want to talk with you or book you, how do they get a hold of you?
My books are available on Amazon.com. That's the easiest way. But I always encourage people to email me with any questions about the books or how they can get them. I'm happy to answer anybody's questions, any children that like to draw or write. My email is bear, B-E-A-R, 59dog @yahoo.com. And my website is Red Dog Art, REDDOGART. And there's a lot of other artwork you can see on my website as well.
Rick, how many years were you a firefighter?
23.
23. My husband was a firefighter for a while, and then he went into professional photography. But it's obviously not easy. I mean, he even had to use the ambulance. Can you drive the ambulance too?
I was on the rescue for 16 years of the 23.
That's a different animal to me. That's kind of, you've got to be pretty strong too.
It was a very rewarding but very difficult job.
Yeah.
One of the things that I usually don't do when I'm reading to the children is tell them that.
Yeah.
Because once I tell them that I was a firefighter, you might as well put the books away and forget about it. That's all they want to know about.
That's all they want to hear. Yeah.
They want to ask me all questions about firefighting and riding in the rescue and dead people and
Oh, God.
what do you do if you go in someone's house and they're naked?
Really?
The questions are unbelievable.
What schools have you been to over there in Rhode Island?
Sacred Heart, which
Yeah,
I mentioned.
yeah,
Barrington Christian Academy, which
Yeah.
I had a friend that taught there. There's a school at Kent Heights that was very, very good to me, and I read at Kent Heights. And one of the Cranston public schools I just did a few months ago.
So you've been launched, I call it launched, a couple of years at least, right?
Mhm.
A couple of years. Did you ever in your wildest dreams think you would become an author after leaving the fire station?
I hoped so. Mr. Moose actually came out while I was still working.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Did the guys know you were writing it?
Not too many of them. Not too many of them.
Yeah.
When it came out, a few of them were surprised. A lot of them with children bought it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, definitely.
People without children don't seem to quite get it.
You know, a lot of adults now, a lot of book clubs at libraries are now having, there's one in Grafton, not just for the young at heart or something like that, where adults, I've been to it, read young adults' books. And then we talk about it.
Yeah, yeah.
You got to be a certain mentality, you know, to want to do this, you know. But to me, there are a lot of young adult ones, as long as it's not super fantasy. They really can be very, very good. As well as children's books. Now, your books, Rick, are going to be downstairs at the Upton Library, you know, our dedicated authors wall.
Great.
So I don't have to worry about that. Where are you going to be speaking next?
I don't have anything on tap right now. I'm going to work on that second Firefighters cartoon book.
Yeah.
I have something else I've written.
Sure, break it
that,
down. What you got?
I didn't bring the sketches that go with it, but this is something new that I wrote a few months ago after a conversation with a friend of mine, and I had this idea. We were talking about Mark Twain.
Yeah.
And we were having this whole conversation about Mark Twain, and we started throwing puns out.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. I kind of went home and said, boy, maybe I can make something of this.
Yeah.
And I had this idea of a boy being on a train with two Mark Twains. And it's called Two Twains on a Train.
Two Twains on a Train.
And I don't know if you want to read a little bit of it.
This looks good. Okay.
It's a little too long to read the whole thing.
So
but
this is going to be even a different type of book?
It'll be a children's book, but I'll probably format it to kind of match these two.
I once saw two Twains on a train. One was eccentric, the other insane. Oh, I love that. As I stood on the platform, I thought, such a shame, waiting in line with two Twains for a train. So,
it's a little bit of a tongue twister.
Yeah, and, well, what does it remind me of? The one that did, Dr. Seuss.
Dr. Seuss.
He kind of did play on words, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
I searched for a seat as the first Twain brushed by. Twain. He studied me with a casual eye. You can guess my concern as I heard his long sigh, looking for seats as two Twains walked on by. Did your mother read to you when you were a kid?
She read to me, and she was very encouraging with reading. I never, ever got a no when I asked to get a book.
All right. How old were you when she stopped reading to you?
When she stopped reading?
Yeah, I knew you could write on your own.
I don't remember.
I was 8. That's quite a ways up there. And she said finally one night, she says, Jan, you can read on your own now. You know, she knew I could read. But I loved kicking back at bedtime and just listening to her because she'd be the animals. Remember Thornton Burgess?
Mm-hmm.
Tales of the Mother West Wind. Okay. She would be the frog, Grandfather Frog.
Oh, great.
Jimmy Squirrel.
So great.
Yeah. So I got a lot of that from her. So I tried to raise my son with reading aloud to him. Did you do that with your daughter?
Well, I had kind of the opposite situation with my daughter. I wasn't the one who said, well, you're old enough to read now.
Yeah.
I used to love to go in and read, and her mom used to read to her, and once I got to know them, she started to say, can Rick come to read to me instead?
Sure. Yeah.
And every night we'd go read a chapter of whatever book we were in the middle of. And I remember the night very clearly that she said, I think I'm okay, Rick, I'll go read on my own. And I was devastated because I really enjoyed that time with her.
Yeah. So she knew. You probably had a lot of, when you read the rest, because I have a feeling you're a terrific out loud reader. Read this. Now, the title of this is going to be Two
Twains on a Train.
Two Twains on a Train. All right, go for it.
So we can't read it all. It's a little too long.
No, but read your favorite parts.
One Twain toward the front, looking obtuse, the other in back with a little gray goose. Two Twains on a train, aloof on the loose. One in the engine, one the caboose. In the dining car I sat with my dish. Twain 1 and Twain 2 had a plate of bluefish, with Brussels and knockwurst and clams Cavendish. Two Twains on a train, both sharing a knish. On the roof in the rain with two Twains nearby. Look out, a bridge, I exclaimed with a cry. Twain 1 ducked down low, Twain 2 jumped up high. Two Twains on a train, one wet and one dry.
I'll bet the kids sitting around you are fascinated because they're wondering what's coming next with the rhyming. Kids get into that. And I think a lot of adults lose it, but you sure didn't. So it was you and your friend who started going with this.
We had this discussion about Mark Twain, and we just started punning.
You started punning.
And when I went home, I wrote a few things down, and I started texting them to him.
Yeah.
And he replied and said, I think you've got something here.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just kept going.
And he encouraged you to keep going.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody's always so
So now what are you going to
encouraging.
do with that? Is it going to be like an illustrated book that you do?
Yeah, I'll do, my preliminary idea is to do the same size as Melba Blue
Yeah.
with a different color on every page. So as Melba Blue, every page is blue, I'll do a yellow page, a purple page, a green page, and try to keep the colors rotating.
Really, when you look at this again, it's so professional. Your artwork, you don't need the computer. If you're doing this all by yourself, you've got it. You've got it down.
Unfortunately, the computer has to come into play at some
I know, the
at
colors,
some time.
right?
You can't even send a manuscript in anymore.
Oh, I didn't even see this in my book.
Oh,
you've
there's
got
one in each one.
Oh, okay. Jan, this this is so cute. You get a bookmark. Do all the kids get a bookmark?
They all get a bookmark.
How about? And you designed that too.
Right. And I have a coloring page for the Mr. Moose book that I give them after we read.
You have a coloring page to pass out?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you give them the colors that you use, or do they do anything they want?
I make it just like a blank coloring page. It's just black and white, and they do whatever they want.
After you give your presentation.
Right.
We're going to get you more up here into Massachusetts. What the heck?
One of my favorite things that I have was after one of the readings, a girl sent me a letter.
Yeah.
I got letters from other people in the class. The teacher put them together. But this girl copied an entire page from the book with crayons, and it was drawn so well. It was fantastic,
Yeah.
and I saved it. It's one of my favorite things that I have.
So the kids had received the books ahead of time, and she did all the artwork she thought would look really great and show it to you.
Yeah, yeah, it was great.
How long do you give them to color after you give your presentation?
I usually just leave them with it and leave.
That's fun.
Sometimes they come back to me. The teachers might send them back to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just bring them home and do them.
Is it hard when you go in? I know I had an author go into a school, and she sat down with the principal and showed the book. It's tricky because sometimes there's some kind they want to let in. You know, it could be good to other people, maybe not. She says it's the parents we need to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever have a problem? I can't see a problem whatsoever.
I don't have a problem with parents, but adults in general are difficult to deal with these books.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to meet a man from Random House who was nice enough to take Mr. Moof's
Yeah.
and show it to the panel that they do to review books.
Yeah.
And they sent me a really, really nice letter back saying, we really like this, and this about it,
Mhm.
but we're not going to take it for these reasons.
Why? Why on earth?
And in their description, they never ever once mentioned that they showed it to a child. They mentioned that we sat around our table with our adults and we showed it to everyone. And the same man was talking to us. It was a presentation he was giving. He was talking to us, and people were having a lot of questions about children's books.
Mm.
And I'm not sure why it is or who decides these things, but there's all these rules.
Yeah.
And I broke probably every rule with Melba Blue that he put forth.
Rules?
The first thing he said is that you never put a girl on the cover of a book because you're eliminating the boys right away, because boys don't want to buy books with the girls on the cover.
Are you serious?
The second thing he said is don't do a book in rhyme because very few people can make it work. And the third thing he said is don't try to illustrate and write your own book because that's not what we want.
The Random House man said this.
This was the guy from Random House. So I kind of walked away really, I guess I had mixed feelings after that meeting, thinking I was already halfway through this, thinking, boy, I'm doing everything he said not to do.
Mm.
And then I just said, well, you know what? This is mine. I'm going to do it the way I want to.
Yeah.
And it's not a what you would call a big-time publisher that has put the book out, but it's out, and people seem to enjoy it.
Yeah, well, when you read to the kids in school, Rick, I mean, do the boys don't get up and say, oh, we're walking out of the room, Melba Blue, and there's a girl in the...
No, they don't. And the boys, boys always like creepy things.
Yeah.
generally, I think it's inherent in them. I remember when I was a kid, I always liked spooky things, and we used to take our bikes and ride through the graveyard and all these things. So the Edgar Allan Poe aspect really appeals to the boys.
Yeah.
And most of the kids, you know, the younger kids, they may have heard the name Shakespeare, and they may have heard Romeo and Juliet, but they don't really know that much about it. So it's kind of nice to introduce that. It's just kind of a light introduction to young kids that these are some of the characters that Shakespeare wrote about. This is kind of who he is. In the back of the book, there's kind of a little list of books that I took from that they can look at or they can ask their parents about.
What I don't understand is the rule that, oh gosh, what was it? You couldn't, he said don't design it yourself, don't have a girl on the cover, and rhyming.
Don't rhyme.
What would be wrong with that? Dr. Seuss did it.
He seemed to feel that very few people can do it.
Do it, or the reader can say it.
Can do it in a way that comes forth. I don't
agree
know
with
if
that.
anybody has that problem with my books. People seem to be able to read them okay.
What I just read was perfect. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's well said. It's good for the children to learn how to speak beautifully. We're talking with Rick Billings, and Rick is from Barrington, Rhode Island. He's a children's author. Go on downstairs to the Mill Upton Library, pick up these copies, and look at them. Rick, again, how can they reach you?
They can reach me, if they just want the books, they can reach them through Amazon. They can reach me at my email, which is bear, B-E-A-R, 59dog@yahoo.com. Or I have a website called Red Dog Art, and there's a message board on the website that they can reach me as well.
The author of Melba Blue and the Tragic Tale of Mr. Moofs. And this guy, he had a problem, that moose. It's about a moose. All right, so...
Actually, do we have another minute?
Sure.
I'd like to read something to you.
Yeah.
I always look at the reviews I get on Amazon from people I don't know.
Go for it.
And, you know, people ask me, you know, why do you want to do the books? And, you know, everybody that doesn't know about this says, you know, how much money did you make? And it's not about making money. It's about doing something I love doing and getting this out there so that people can see it. I generally, year to year, give away almost as many copies as I sell.
Yeah.
I give a lot of copies to libraries and schools and people that I know with kids that can't afford them and things like that. So I got a review here that I got on Amazon, and this made me feel so good because it was someone I didn't know, and it told me that the book kind of hit the mark. My son loves his night-night, his blanket. He has always had it and always loved it. Even though he's torn and tattered and threadbare in places, my son loves him. His sister, however, does not. She sometimes insults Night-Night or plots its demise, sort of like the sister does with the moose in the book. Mind you, the worst my daughter does is hide it occasionally. She never actually tries to harm his Night-Night. But this book made my son feel so happy for two reasons. One, another little boy loves his toy as much as my son loves Night-Night. And two, the sister in the story actually ends up liking the moose in spite of herself. This gives my son hope that maybe his sister secretly loves Night-Night, or that she might someday.
There's a good review for it. That's excellent, right?
That's the best review I've ever gotten.
That makes it lights up your whole day.
That made me feel like, okay, the book hit the mark.
Yeah.
I was worried that people were going to feel that the girl in the book was a bully, and I try to explain to the kids that maybe she's not doing the things they think she's doing.
Yeah.
Maybe when she puts him in the washing machine, she just wants to give him a bath.
Yeah.
And the washing machine, by the way, is their favorite page.
The washing machine. Rick, this has been fun, and you're going to let me know about your next one coming up, right? And that's going to be the cartoon one.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. See you next time and be my guest.